Bob Loy, welcome to Foster and Friends, man.
Thanks, Brett. It's great to be here.
Awesome, dude.
I'm excited to be here.
I'm very excited to have you here. And just like every single guest that comes on the show, this is not a bribe or anything. I just do this out of the goodness of my heart. I usually present a gift, and this one is St. Elmo's Steakhouse. Thank you, St. Elmo's, for being in Indianapolis and creating this. This is really good. It is straight bourbon whiskey with dark cherry and bourbon vanilla beans. So this goes to my friend Bob Loy.
Wow. Thank you. I'm looking forward to trying it.
Yeah, dude.
So give me some advice. Is this a sip on the rocks?
Sip on the rocks.
Type
Yeah.
of whiskey? Okay.
This is a sip on the rocks. Kind of like you want it to just marinate in that ice as it melts, cool
Okay.
it, and then just get the cherry and the vanilla.
Got it.
And so it's not something you go neat with. You can, but I personally like it on the rocks.
Okay.
So there you
I
go.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'll take advantage of that.
Dude,
Great.
that's awesome. So welcome to 2022, man. How was your Christmas?
You know, we had a great holiday as a family. We
Yeah.
had COVID did not interrupt any Christmas plans.
Great.
So that was awesome. I know
Yeah.
there's a lot of families out there who have had that happen. And we were lucky
Brutal.
that did not happen. So we had a great family Christmas. Both sides. We had to
Yep.
travel for a weekend here and there with my family and with my in-laws.
Yeah.
But we were able to see everybody.
Yeah.
And just had a great time.
That's awesome.
Family was able to get together and just
Yeah.
really enjoyed each other. And then we got to spend a lot of time as an immediate family together for a couple weeks too, just being at home and enjoying each other.
Yeah. I love this. Family first, dude. Family
Yeah.
first. So any New Year's resolutions?
You know, I really don't.
No?
I used to do a lot of resolution stuff.
Lose
for-
weight, stop
Yeah,
drinking.
The typical things that 90% of Americans probably put in
Yeah.
there. But
The fad diet.
but I'm gonna be real with you, man.
Yeah.
I think that this sounds it's easier said than done, but kind of my own personal belief and philosophy is if I create a lifestyle, then I don't have to worry about a resolution.
Amen to that.
You know, if I can create, if losing weight is something to be that people want to do, my encouragement is to try and generate a lifestyle that you can sustain long term,
Right.
that is healthy and allows you to feel good, and then you don't have to worry about a January resolution that fails in February. So
Right.
so that's my goal, is always to develop and create a lifestyle for myself and my family that I don't have to worry about having a resolution on January 1st to change something drastic. So
Totally.
small tweaks here and there, constant self-improvement and self-growth, personal
Mhm.
growth.
Mhm.
And I think that's kind of where I live.
Yeah, I need to do more of that. Dude, I need to do more of that. I love that, dude. So a lot of people out there, that is really important to do. I just love that. If you have a lifestyle, you don't ever have to have a resolution. Who's been your greatest motivation?
Oh my gosh.
Who? Is there a specific person,
I don't
role
know.
model, or anything like that? Have you ever thought of it that way?
I don't know that I have a one person.
Mhm.
God has put people in my life throughout my entire career at the right times, personally and professionally, that have given me the motivation to move in certain directions.
Mhm.
And that goes all the way back from, growing up in a wonderful family with my dad,
Mm.
and just the hard work, the basically, do whatever it takes to provide, even though I don't like it, I don't enjoy it. It's what's best to make the best for my family,
Yeah.
that kind of an attitude that
Yeah.
he's always had. And so from that, and being instilled in me from the time I was really young, through high school teachers, I think from little up, I've always said I wanted to be a teacher and a coach.
Yeah,
And because I've had great influences in the classroom and great influences on the field,
yeah,
people who I can look to of high character, of just, someone you look at and think, man, I really want to be like that guy. I want something that he's got. And
Yeah.
so I've had that really growing up, all through high school.
You're fortunate.
I was very fortunate,
Yeah.
still am. I mean, I still have people like that in my life who I turn to, who I look towards, who I get to talk with and interact with. God puts these people in my life all the time, and so I can't really speak to one person. I
Mhm.
think it depends on what it is that the focus is at the time,
Right, at the
and then
time.
that puts a different person kind of in my, in my focus, or as the person of influence.
Right.
We've
Yeah.
got,
I'm sitting here thinking about some people, or have you ever come across people where you're like, that is not what I want to be like?
Oh, absolutely. I think you always, there's, okay, how do you want to be, or what do you want to be, right?
Right.
And then, I hear testimonies a lot from men,
From
and
that, yeah.
just, well, I had an example of what not to do. Some guys really have that in their life. Well, this was my example, whether it be their father or another family member or a leader,
Yes.
of a place that they've worked with,
Coach.
or a coach.
Yeah.
I don't want to be like that guy.
Yeah.
And
Like,
so then they work obviously off of that
Right.
to be the antithesis of that, and
That's
do
right.
the opposite, right? So,
right.
and in turn, because of that, then they turn out to be a great husband, father, leader, etc.
Right.
Because they've had an example of what not to do,
Exactly. Man.
and they can recognize it. And I think that's important for us too. Is when you see it, do you recognize that that isn't the best way to do things, or
Right.
how to do things
Right.
that impact people in a positive way?
Correct. Dude, that's right on, man. Let's see, is there, so there's not really any specific person, but it kind of over time evolves and develops, and as you get older, we're aging, man.
Don't say it.
I know.
No.
I'm sitting here with, man, as we get older, we're not in our 20s
Hey,
anymore.
just because the number gets bigger does not mean that we are aging.
we're a fine wine. We get better with time is how I try to look at this.
That's my goal.
Yeah.
That's my goal.
Yeah, and it's harder to recover from workouts for sure. I struggle to work.
There's some truth in that too.
Yeah, and weight just doesn't come off like it used to. But what? Here's just I've got a bunch of random questions here. What part of your life experience would you alter if you had the chance to? Is there any one thing that you would change? And obviously, that can be anything, something simple or something complex.
Yeah. My gosh, man. The answer that everybody wants to be able to give is, well, everything happens for a specific reason, and so I wouldn't change anything because
Right.
that affects the person I am now.
Right. That's typical.
Yeah, that's the typical response that you hope that everybody really believes.
Sure.
And
Yeah, not just tongue in cheek saying that.
yeah, I don't know if I have something that I would go back and say, I wish that were different. Now, I will say there was a point in my life. I was 28 years old,
Mhm.
and my wife and I were pregnant with my first son,
Yeah.
or our only son, first child.
Yeah.
And we were about 7 months pregnant, and I got sick and found out that I had cancer.
Yeah.
And so, yes, obviously I would change that because obviously nobody wants that, right? Nobody wants that for themselves. Nobody wants that for somebody in their family. And for me, looking back, I saw what it did and the impact it had, at least immediate impact negatively of concern, sadness,
Yeah.
worry on my wife and the rest of my family. So you don't wish that on anybody.
Right.
But then you look at, what it did for us and for
Mhm.
myself, and I thought, never have I really known that this is completely out of my control, and all my faith had to get put into what God had in store for us. And because there was literally nothing that I could do to help myself other than go to the doctor and get
Right.
treatment, but
Man.
but it was completely, I couldn't go change jobs to improve the situation. I couldn't sell my house and move to improve the situation. I couldn't quit something or quit drinking or quit doing this to improve the scenario or the situation. It was just listen to my doctor and do what he said.
Yeah.
And so, we were blessed really through the whole thing. I mean, you look at it and you think, well, you're just ready to have a baby. How
Yeah.
can you look at it that way? But I stayed home for my wife and I got to be together at home with our first child for the first 3 months.
And that's a blessing.
And that was a blessing for us. At the time, my employer had something set up where they had like a sick bank, and so you could donate days, and so I got full compensation for the entire time that I was off of work for that time. And that's a blessing, you know.
Big time.
How many people can say that they go on a 6-month sick leave and then get full compensation? And that just doesn't happen.
That doesn't.
And so things like that were in place, and I believe,
Uh-huh.
you know, because they needed to be for us to be able to get through and sustain and come out on the other side, you know.
Right.
And I still believe, somebody had to see me go through that and see me react to it, grow out of it, and come through it and fight through it.
Right.
And I may never know who that person was who was impacted
That's
by
right.
that story or by that
Mhm.
journey that
Mhm.
they had to see or hear of me go through.
Mm-hmm.
But it is part of my story, and somebody needs to hear that.
Yeah.
And so I don't hesitate to ever talk about or share it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I
I'm glad.
let me
you
back
did.
up. Sometimes
I'm glad
I do kind of hesitate because I don't like the conversation to only
be around that.
be around that.
And I get that.
That's something that when you bring that up, everybody's immediately changes their focus to,
Yeah.
oh, well, let's talk about that. And it's not about me.
No,
you know?
I totally get it. So, like, one of the and we'll talk about it a little bit more,
Sure,
but
that's okay.
cancer is what kind of cancer was it?
It was Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Hodgkin's lymphoma. Okay.
Yeah.
And how long did it take to get through that period of time
I would say,
from diagnosis to the end?
yeah, probably from diagnosis until I was,
So you were 28. So
28 years old. It was September of that
Okay.
year of 2009.
yep.
And it was May of 2010 when I was finished with treatment.
Okay. And then when were you cleared?
I was technically after 2 months. So this is another kind of God intervention in the story.
Yeah. Love to hear it.
So I was getting treatment every 2 weeks.
Yep.
I would go in, and it took most of the day, and I would have my chemo
Mhm.
and so on. And so every time I would go in, I would see the doctor, and they would do blood work and so on. And then
Mhm.
I think every other time, about once a month, they do an X-ray or a PET scan
Yeah.
and kind of go through and make sure everything was still progressing the way they wanted it to. And after 4 treatments, or about 2 months, when I went to see my doctor,
Yeah.
he said that they could not see the mass that was in my chest any longer on the
No
chest X-ray.
kidding.
So I had a 10-centimeter mass about the size of a softball in my chest. Is where
Jeez.
when they did the chest X-ray,
Yeah.
they found it.
Yeah.
And after 4 treatments, they couldn't find it any longer. Couldn't see it on an X-ray anymore.
This was gone.
So essentially, he said I was in clinical remission, is what he said. Is how
Okay.
they
So
defined that.
yeah.
So that was on a Tuesday
Uh-huh.
in December. It would be December. I guess it would have been December 9th.
Mm-hmm.
And so my wife and I went out to dinner on the. Sorry, that would have been December 8th. Went out to dinner on that Thursday
Yeah.
to celebrate.
Right.
And went to Fogo de Chao up in I was
That's a
up in
good one.
Noblesville.
Yeah.
That was a good one. I like to eat, man. I like to eat. And so that was a great choice. But we went that evening on that Thursday,
Mm-hmm.
would have been the 10th, I believe. And
Mhm.
then that night we went to the hospital and had our son the next day on Friday.
Oh my gosh.
So
Wow. That's awesome.
yeah, so
Yeah.
we had clinical remission.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to, I could have stayed in the hospital room, but
Yeah.
I was still a little nauseous from
From that.
the chemo stuff, so
Yeah.
I had to step out. But
Yeah.
born December 11th, and
Congrats.
and healthy,
Yeah.
and like I said, then we were able to be home, and I was
Mhm.
able to be there. And
Mhm.
COVID wasn't a thing then, so
Yeah.
there wasn't any kind of restriction with that. But
Yeah.
so yeah, then,
How did you grow through that? Like, looking back on it now, as you tell that story, that's a very impactful narrative. But how, looking back at it, how'd you grow? Like, how do you feel like you are a different person today because of that?
I think what it did for me, and I'll go back to my kind of my faith journey a little bit.
Yeah.
It was really what allowed me to have an experience that you hear a lot of people talk about, where maybe they hit rock bottom and they had no choice but to put their faith in God and
Mhm.
really rely on what their faith is,
Mhm.
as the foundation. And this was a time that we had to do that.
Yeah.
We didn't have a choice because we knew we knew this was something we had to deal with. We knew that this was something that was, was dangerous. It was scary.
Mm-hmm. A lot of unknowns.
A lot of unknowns, but I never ever felt nervous about it. I never felt worried about it. It was something that now allows me to go back and say, well, remember when we had to go through that?
Mm-hmm.
What we're going through now isn't even close to what that was. And look at how we were able to just take a deep breath,
Mm-hmm.
rely on, and know that God's going to be there. We know that He took us through that.
Mm-hmm.
And my goodness, if He's going to get us through something like that, then this, what seems in the moment like could be is a big deal, isn't really that big of a deal.
Yes.
And we're going to get through it.
Totally.
So that's really, I think, where my biggest growth out of that has come. And and my mom is a breast cancer survivor now, and so when that came through, I was able to kind of help talk her through some of that. I've had numerous. I mean, it's amazing it's like when you buy a new car, all of a sudden you see every other one just like it going down the road. Like you think you're kind of unique, right?
Yeah.
And then
i.e. Tesla or something.
Right. So now everybody else driving down the road has the exact same car in the same color, right? Well, for us, or for me anyway, when we went through that, now it was, man, it's just more and more people that you hear about and know about have had the same type or similar type, and God puts people in my path now who I can now speak to and talk with about it.
Right.
So
because otherwise you wouldn't have that experience to relate to.
Exactly. And it allows me to kind of help them see that, hey, it's going to be okay. Here's what you can expect.
Mm-hmm.
Here are some of the things that I had to go through. Now, my experience might have been a little bit different, obviously, because of the type or the treatment or whatnot, and age and all these other things. But it helps me give them some hope, and some peace of it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
There is a light at the end.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna really be hard for a few months, but then after that, it's gonna be fine.
Yeah, it sure sounds like your relationship with God, you've gotten closer to Him, your wife, your family, that type of thing. It's very profound how He can take things like that and totally and almost completely change somebody's life and their perspective on life.
Right.
And then make them relatable to other people so that we can all share in our suffering, if you will.
Well, He doesn't cause it.
He doesn't
cause
it. Exactly.
He uses it for good.
That's right.
What the enemy
intends for evil, He uses for good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, what a big example in our life of truth.
Right. Exactly. So let's transition. I'd love to hear about where you went to school, where'd you grow up, your story, what do you do now? And then also if you could transition from what you're doing now into meaning like teaching. That's what I'm referring to is teaching. And then how did you come into Fight Club and then PHARE Warrior and that type of stuff?
Okay,
and ministry. So kind of where'd you grow up, man?
Well, I'm a small town country boy from northern Indiana.
There you go.
I grew up on a farm.
Yep.
Went to a real small high school, Shipshewana, Indiana.
I've heard of it.
I
have no clue on a map where that's at.
It's about an hour straight north of Fort Wayne if you're driving north.
Okay. So those of you on the West Coast who listen, Fort Wayne.
Yeah.
Where?
North, and so sorry about that. I forget we're not talking just people here in the Midwest. We are in the northeast corner of Indiana, about 10 minutes south of the Michigan-Indiana border.
Okay, so how far to Chicago?
It would be about 2 to 2.5 hours straight east of Chicago.
Got it.
And we're about 2.5 hours northeast of Indianapolis.
Okay, so you are out where you don't get cell reception.
There are more points out there where their cell reception goes out than here. Yes.
You need GPS. You need coordinates. When out there, it seems like they talk in coordinates. 4,000 north, 800, whatever, and you're like, really?
Yep. That's exactly
and when you hit the dirt road, you take a left.
There are many gravel roads up there. That is for sure.
So you grew up there.
Yeah. So my family background is pretty unique. I think on my mom's side. My mom grew up Amish, and so I have a big.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So my grandparents on my mom's, my grandparents on that side of the family were Amish. A lot of cousins, Amish cousins, a couple aunts and uncles that are Amish, and so big family. Mom had I think it was 15 brothers and sisters.
Wow.
So
That's
a
huge.
lot of cousins, a lot of aunts. I mean, just a great time at family Christmas, right?
No
So
kidding.
we get together a couple times a year still, and just it's a lot of fun.
Wow.
A lot of fun. So
That is unique.
very unique, very unique. The community there is a very obviously heavy Amish community.
Yep.
I would say probably
You speak Dutch?
a little bit.
A little bit.
A little
Okay.
bit. Not
I've been to-
enough to share a lot.
I've
so.
been by. I would go to Amish auctions.
Yeah.
Yeah, and thankfully they spoke English too.
Right.
So,
Right. that
but
makes
they like to talk
Oh,
in
yeah.
Dutch, so I had no clue what they were saying. They're
Yeah.
probably making fun of me.
that could have been.
Yeah. No, keep going.
No, but so I went to real small high school, but played. I was an athlete, played 3 sports: soccer, baseball, basketball through
Wow.
high school.
Yeah.
And when you're in a small school and you're a halfway decent athlete,
Uh-huh.
then you get to play a lot. So
Mhm.
that was, I was a halfway decent average athlete at a really small school, so I got to play a lot of sports.
Hey, big
And
fish, small
It was
pond.
it was a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Ended up going down to University of Southern Indiana, which
Okay.
is in Evansville. So
Yeah.
I think I grew up in the northeast corner of the
Yeah,
state.
and now
I went
you're-
to college in the southwest corner of the state.
Yeah.
So about 6 hours. It's about a 6-hour drive, or
Yeah.
3 to 350 miles
Yeah.
span. But went down there for elementary education.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said before, I really have known probably since middle school that I wanted to be a teacher and a coach.
That's pretty unique too.
I think some of
a lot of people don't know what to do.
they don't. You know,
Yeah.
they get out of high school, they don't know what to do, and it
Yeah.
really never varied for me.
Mhm.
I had great influencers and wonderful people in my life who were
Mhm.
teachers and coaches, and I thought, well, you know, they seem like really
I
great
wanna
people.
do that.
Why wouldn't I want to be like one of them? You know, I knew
Totally.
I didn't want to farm. I knew I didn't want to work in a factory, which is another huge industry in that area, is a
Yeah.
trailer factory. I didn't want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to work in construction, which is another industry up there that
Yeah.
out of high school, a lot of people will go into.
Yep.
And it seems like the teachers in my area had it made, man. They went on vacations. They had some
Yeah,
summer off. I'm like,
I know, right?
I need to do this.
But that's a good. It's great. And then also just teaching young people is just something is invaluable to me. Education is so important.
I agree. The impact and influence that you can have. And I coach my younger brother's sports teams. You know, when I was in high school and he was in middle school, elementary, I would coach his teams, and so
That's
I really
really
loved
cool.
and enjoyed that.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of naturally was something that I enjoyed and it felt like I was pretty good at. And so
Yeah.
went to school for that,
Yep. So
Had
Southern Indiana.
Southern Indiana.
And then from there.
Then from there came up into Carmel, Central Indiana, around the Indianapolis area.
Yep.
My wife and I met at college. She went to Chicago right out of college. I came to Indianapolis, and then eventually I lured her down here to the middle of the state, down to the Indianapolis
Attaboy.
area, and
Attaboy. Good job.
and got hired in Carmel, Indiana, which is just that northern
Mhm.
suburb.
Yep.
And have been here now. This is year 17 in the district.
17 years.
Yep.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
That's
And,
awesome.
um,
And so now Fight Club. Can you tell me about how you came into learning about Fight Club?
Yeah, Fight Club is a men's program, 10-week intense program that started actually in Goshen, Indiana, which is close to where I grew up. So
Yeah.
the northern part of the state.
Yep.
There was a pastor at a church up there that started. Him and a group of men sat down and really wrote it and organized it and started it.
Mm-hmm.
And about 10 years or so into my career, about 10 years after I had moved here,
Mm-hmm.
I was part of a men's Bible study that we'd been meeting every Friday morning, and we were looking for something new, something different to do, the next book to read, whatever.
Yeah.
And I had seen a post on social media from a high school friend of mine about this thing you did called Fight Club.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a generic post, and it was something I think that all the guys who were going through it were probably said, hey, put this on your social media feed to
Right.
kind of get guys in or recruit or
Yeah.
advertise per se.
Sure.
And I saw him post it, and I saw another guy post it that we went to high school with.
Yeah.
And the fact that both of them had posted it was really unique because the two of them in high school were not friends. And so,
So you're like, what?
yeah,
What's
it was
going on?
really unique and different. I thought the two of them really they just didn't get along. They were not friends.
Right.
And after I had seen that from both of them, then I also noticed that the two of them, their families were actually going through and were part of a small group together. So I thought, if this could bring those two guys together to a point where their families now are are in a small group together, going on, couples dates together, whatever. I thought there's got to be something to this.
Yeah.
So I actually called him up and I said, hey, tell me more about this Fight Club thing.
Mm-hmm.
What is it? He gave me, as the typical pitch is, very little. Because
we don't talk about it. Yeah, right.
So he gave me just enough to intrigue.
Yeah.
And so I
wanted more.
Whatever it was enough that I wanted more.
Yeah.
And so you know me well enough that I usually don't. If I want something like that, I just go. I ask the right people. Like I don't mess around. I call the top dog. I'm like, hey, tell me what I need to do.
Yeah.
How can I get involved?
Yeah.
And how can I be a part of this?
Right.
And so I did. I literally called the pastor and I said,
yeah,
I want to do this. Tell me what to do. And so I initially really wanted to do it at the church I was attending. And the men's pastor there had heard of it through another guy, but had never done it, didn't really know anything about it. He said, well, you go through and do it first and then come back and talk to me about it. And we'll see what we can do. And so I went and took that to my Bible study group that was meeting on Friday mornings. And there was a rather poorly done promo video on the website, and because it was so early,
sure,
stuff that they just trying to put something together.
There were no drones.
There were no drones. There were no fancy microphones and cameras. It was pretty, but it was enough. I said, hey guys,
that's all it takes.
Do you want to do this?
There's an invitation.
Yeah. And
cool.
I said, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
I said, I'm either going to go do it. There was one starting in Fort Wayne, which again is that northern part of the state, a couple hours away. I said, I'm going to either go do that one. I said, you guys can come with me.
Yeah.
We can do it together. I said, or we can do it together with the 8 of us down here. And I said, and I'll lead it. I'll organize it. I'll kind of put it together, and I'll help us figure it out. I've never done it, but I'll help us figure it out. I said, and if you say no, that's fine. If you don't want to do it, I'm going to do the one up there anyway, in Fort Wayne. And so they all said, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
And so, well, okay, here we go. And so I had to kind of figure it out, And so again, with some phone calls and some help with my buddies, we put some things together. And Fight Club, it focuses on relational, spiritual, mental, and physical growth and challenges. And you get tasks every week, challenges every week in those areas, and you complete those tasks, and it's so I was really passionate about and had a high interest in the physical, nutritional part.
Right.
So I kind of delegated. I had another guy who did some of the relational challenges for every week. When we got together, he would say, okay, your relational challenge is this for the week, and another guy did scripture memorization. And we read the book Every Man's Battle together. We met every Friday morning, and we trudged through it. We worked through it, and it was great, obviously. And that was about 8 years ago. And
how big of a group was it initially?
Just the 8 of us.
Yeah, just the 8.
We sat around a round table at a local cafe every Friday morning at 6 a.m. and there were 8 guys, and so you have an accountability partner. So we needed an even number, and we had a couple guys who weren't normally part of that group who we invited and were interested in that. And one guy was just getting ready to get married. Another guy was an older guy. He was more seasoned. Vintage. The rest of us were about the same age. We were about 30. 30 years old at the time.
Right.
And, so pretty young, I guess.
Young bucks. We're older now. Vintage.
Mid-30s. But anyway, and so it was just really a pretty small group of us that just did it to really kind of, like I said, it was the next thing for us. It was something new and different.
And you guys were trying to better yourselves. Right. I mean, everybody that said yes was like, hey, I need to try to be a better person. I maybe need to challenge myself in some areas. I want to grow, because a lot of times what happens is after college, maybe the sports, like with me, like I relied so heavily on the teams I was on. After I'm off those teams, I'm in the workforce in a new region of the country I've never been in. And I had to start forming relationships again, friendships and things. And I lost a lot of that camaraderie and accountability to growing and challenges and working and becoming a better person. So when I found Fight Club, it was it was several years after you guys founded it, but through the church and stuff, heard about it, and then finally went, and it appeals to me, and it also appealed to a lot of my friends and stuff like that. So I'm glad that you guys got it kicked off, and you said yes to stepping up and trying to lead this and get it off the ground along with other men who have become leaders in all of this. So it's really awesome that you guys have done it. And that was about what, 8 years ago?
Yeah, that's kind of what we're, quote unquote, called a round one.
Round one. Yeah.
And we're getting ready to kick off round 15 now. So
yeah, when is that?
That is in March.
March.
Registration opens up in February, and kickoff is March 18th.
So you guys out there, and or wives who hear this, but the guys, say yes, show up. I think Matt covered this last time, but how many guys show up each round? 2 rounds a year?
Yeah, we do 2 rounds a year, and we typically have between 500 and 600 guys each round that will say yes and go through.
Yeah.
And literally from across the country, across the world, really. And
right.
We've got groups in Northern Ireland. We've got a group in Brazil, South America. We've got guys down in Georgia, up in Michigan and Wisconsin. So literally across the country and across the world, we've got guys who say yes, and that's something that, if there's some positive that come out of COVID, right?
Yeah.
That is something that has stretched us as a group.
I was going to ask you
to be able to accommodate.
Yeah.
Because what it's enabled a lot of us, which not really enabled, but required a lot of us to do, is become more savvy in our tech skills and ability to include people who aren't in the same room with us, right?
Yes.
And so we have a lot more guys now who are comfortable with and have the ability to navigate a virtual meeting or an online forum. And so we have literally, if you're out in California listening to this right now, you could say yes, and we plug you into a virtual squad, a virtual group, and we have a leader who is completely dedicated to you as being a part of that. And he does all the meeting and does everything over the computer, I think he uses Zoom and that online platform. And the experience from what we have gotten back, feedback we've gotten from guys, is really, really positive. You don't have to be there every time, but you get that interaction from coast to coast of guys all over the country who are part of it and doing the same thing. They're all on the same journey that you had said before, Brent. I just want to be a better dad. I want to be a better person, a better man, a better father to my kids, better leader in my workforce, better friend.
Yes.
Just overall, when you think about growth physically, mentally, spiritually, and relationally, I mean, is there much more than that, really, as far as growing and improving? And
I think we've got that covered.
I mean, that's a pretty all-encompassing mission.
Absolutely. And if you're a business owner or a team lead somewhere in corporate America, and you want to learn about how to be a servant leader, there's a lot of resources that Fight Club offers to help people, men, women alike, learn how to be a better leader, right?
Absolutely. That's something that me personally, I've always had a passion for, is leadership. From going back into high school, being a captain of the team, to in the classroom, and in my career, to being a teacher leader, but then also looking at how can I be a leader in the building, as maybe an administrator. But then, what Fight Club has done for me is moved me from what I would call kind of a quote unquote back row Christian, where I walk into a big church, I sit in the back row, I listen to the message, I walk out, I don't really talk to people.
Right.
I'm there, in attendance, but am I really doing? Am I really leading? And it's really has moved me to the front. What I would call the front row, right? It's put me up front of here's how we can do this together, and here have been my struggles and my journey, and it allows me to relate with the guy who doesn't quite know where he fits in his workplace or church or whatever it might be, of where his faith, questioning maybe where his faith is. If he's very early in his walk, to a guy who maybe, we've had pastors who have come through and grown in their leadership of people, of men. And so no matter where the person is, the man is on his journey, we have a place for that guy to plug in, grow. And you had mentioned, that I think really it's a discipleship making program first, right?
Yes. Yep.
And then it's a leadership development process as well.
Right.
And then we build on that continuously. Something
Right.
that a guy can do 15 times and continue to learn and grow.
Exactly. Like you and I both have. Like just
Right.
just keep doing it, and it evolves and changes as you do it. As you say yes and go through rounds, there's rounds where I've taken off, but then come back to it and been presented with different challenges or put some things that I wanted to grow on myself actually, and try to improve upon that with accountability to try to grow over time. And it's really been awesome. I've enjoyed it. One of the so discipleship and leadership, to me, when you said that, they go like hand in hand too,
Sure.
And leadership, can you talk a little bit more about that, what you're passionate about?
Yeah. Leadership to me it really comes down to two, for me personally, it comes down to two main things.
Yep.
One is service,
Yep.
being a servant leader,
Mm-hmm.
and leading by example.
Yes.
Those are two big concepts for me that when somebody would ask me of, what's your philosophy of leadership, or what's your mission, leadership mission, or whatever, I think that those two things really come out in everything that I try to do. But it also, nothing happens without somebody saying yes and taking the lead on doing whatever it is that occurs, whether it's a business, whether it's a Bible study group,
Right.
whether it's the implementation of a fight club, in a men's
Right.
group or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Nothing happens until somebody provides the leadership for it.
Right. Coaching.
Coaching, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And I think we all, to me, leadership is developed. You grow as a leader. I don't think you're born as a leader.
Yeah.
I think that you learn how to be an effective leader through experiences, through God putting people in your life to show and mentor you in specific times of your life.
Right.
And then learning and putting yourself in a situation to where you can learn and grow
Right.
in how to lead people.
Right. And being vulnerable is how I think you do that. Just to hook into what you're saying, you have to say yes. You have to be willing to fail and be vulnerable and own your mistakes and learn from them and move on. And that's true across being a husband, being a coach, being a corporate employee or a business owner. It's not always it's like you said, through experiences that you learn how to grow, but you got to say yes. You can't just sit in the background and let other people do it.
Well, you have to look at yourself as a leader and you think, well, is anybody following me?
Right.
And if nobody's following you, then we need to change some things.
Right. Exactly.
And I think that, you and I have both had men in our lives, people in our lives
Yes.
who we look to and we know are good leaders, and some we know who are not so good leaders.
Correct.
And so, one of the foundational things I think in leadership and ties of vulnerability is trust.
Right.
And you can't build trust, I don't think, without being vulnerable also.
That's right.
At first.
Right.
That vulnerability-based trust is, I think, the foundation and probably the best, in my opinion, best kind of or type of trust that we can have with somebody. And unless you as a leader are willing to just be vulnerable and real with the people who you are leading, whether that's across, as far as colleagues, or leading up to your boss or your superior, if you're someone who's in the workforce, or if you have followers below you or people who are working for you or serving you, I think it's important that you're vulnerable and show, we call it get in the mud, right? Show them, that, look, I struggle too with certain things, and it's okay, but let's work together to help move forward and figure this out. And
That's right.
And you being the leader need to take the lead on that.
Right.
Yeah.
And we each have unique gifts, strengths, talents, abilities, and that's what the body of Christ is all about. But also in a team, everybody has different talents and abilities, and I think one of the best things we can do as being leaders is looking at how to work all of that together for good, and saying, hey, you know what, you're better than me in this area. I would love for you to take that, and I'm pretty strong over here. so let me take this, and then maybe have another dude say, or woman on your team say, hey, you're really good at this. I'm not good at it. And that vulnerability, of course I want to improve on those things that you're really good at. Maybe I can learn from you. Definitely can learn from you in that. And so I love this conversation, because there's a lot of times how not to do it is to think that you've got it all together and portray that you've got all the answers. And so I've seen that type of leadership or an authoritarian where they do a lot of commanding, but they don't do a whole lot of like, hey, I'm not really good at this. Why don't you do it? Or decision making, that type of thing, where maybe they can't make a decision and it causes disruptions or a path that the team shouldn't be going down. So there's just an awful lot that I think Fight Club offers through the process that I don't know of anyone who hasn't gotten anything out of it.
Yeah, whether you start and you participate for 2 or 3 weeks.
Yep.
And say, maybe it wasn't for you right now,
right.
Or whatever it might be, or maybe life just happens and it just happens and it's just not the right time.
It's happened to me. Yeah, it's happened to me before where I've signed up, I've gone, and then it just is not.
Yeah,
it's not working.
It doesn't fit like you thought it was going to fit.
No, and I don't give up easily. So
sure.
So you can always stay on for the 10 weeks, but maybe not as engaged. Like there's been some times where life has happened that way, but I fully intend to be back.
Yeah,
and doing it here in March.
Be back anytime, but it's whether you're there for a couple weeks, follow, participate, etc. for a couple weeks, or you are able to and finish throughout the 10 weeks without striking out. And that's not easy. It's not easy.
What constitutes a strikeout?
Yeah, so great question. So I was talking earlier about the tasks or the challenges that you get every week in those 4 areas, right? And so basically how it works is if you go through your week and you accomplish or are able to do all of the different challenges and tasks that we give in those 4 areas, then you're good, right? You're great. Week done, accomplished, move on to week 2.
Right.
And if you would go through a week and maybe physical and nutritional is always one of that causes the most the most pain and pressure for various reasons.
Yeah.
But maybe you were supposed to work out 3 days this week and you only worked out 2.
Yes.
Then that would be a strike because you didn't meet the criteria or meet the challenge that was given to you for the week. And so if we can get through 10 weeks and not get 3 strikes, then we graduate.
Right. Okay.
And once you graduate, you get a band and you can buy a shirt.
Right.
First time grad shirt. And every time you go through it, there's a different, we call it swag or grad gear that you have the opportunity to get. And Brent, you've got, I think that was maybe around 3 or so. I think you get that, something like that. If you've gone through 3 times. There's different shirts and different hats and so on that you can get.
That's pretty cool.
Depending on how many times you go through, and that's the cool thing about it. I mean, you can go through once a year. You can go through twice a year. You can go through once and say that was great. You can go through 15 times, and every single time you get something different out of it. Grow in a different way. You grow in yourself. You grow with other people. Grow in your leadership.
Right.
And grow. Your family continues to grow and get stronger as well.
Yeah. Can you, so I'm going to transition a little away from Fight Club. Can you talk about PHARE Warrior and what that's about?
Yeah, PHARE Warrior is, as of January of 22, newly established 501c3 public charity. So that was really exciting for us. Something we've been talking about. When I say we, I mean our co-leader of Fight Club and executive director of PHARE Warrior, Matt Zappasotti.
Yep.
When he and I really got started together about 7 years ago, it was really pretty quick after we had done a couple rounds of this together. We started brainstorming of how can this become something that we do, something that develops into maybe full time, for us at some point or on some level. And so we've had a lot of different great men come through and leaders come through. And when we really started to massage this idea, probably 4 or 5 years ago, it's been a while, when this really started to develop.
Yeah.
There were 5 principles that kind of came out of how we operate and what we do. And one of those was purpose, humility, accountability, respect, and excellence. And so that PHARE makes up FAIR.
Right.
And FAIR is the French word for lighthouse.
Nice.
And so we believe
I did
that,
not know that.
Yeah, so
See,
it
I
is
need
really
to get it brushed up on my French.
it is really a God thing, the way everything kind of came together.
Yeah.
But those 5 principles: purpose, humility, accountability, respect, and excellence. We believe that by pursuing those, by embracing those, we can be the light for men in the world. We can be a light for men to turn to, go towards, and guide, men in our world today that to help them grow,
Right.
spiritually, mentally, physically, in
Right.
those 4 areas.
It's a challenging world.
It is a challenging world,
Yeah.
and
This is great, man.
it's been a time, the last couple of years in our world that has been very divisive. And can we bring men together?
Yeah.
Through our faith, through our walk, and have God at the center of that,
Right.
and just start to help realign a little bit,
Yeah.
and take the focus off of some of the divisive topics that are out there, and what are we here for? Let's we talk about a lot of these issues and so on that come up, and whether it's in business or otherwise, and it really boils down to pride. I think a lot of times when you really dive into some of the
couldn't agree more.
Of the disagreements and divisiveness, it comes down to personal pride. And so if we
Wanting
can
to be right,
and if we can humble ourselves a little bit and act with humility,
yes,
whether it be in leadership, in business, in daily life at home, whatever it might be, hold each other accountable to those actions, be respectful, and really try to build and become excellent in all that we're doing. We believe that can move us, and we believe that men are the leaders of the home, and the leaders in the church, and just as the man moves, the world kind of moves sometimes,
Yep.
and so if we can help our men lead our families at home well,
correct.
then I think a lot of other things start to kind of go away, and there are things out there with the father factor, and we believe in that, and how can we help men as husbands and fathers and leaders of our families to really encompass those 5 things as well. So Fight Club is one of the ways, is one of the kind of the arms or programs that we run to help accomplish that.
Yes, and then PHARE Warrior builds on that even more.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's, man, changing the culture, our culture, for good, not for bad, but more for inclusion, more for understanding and hearing the other sides of arguments, so that we're not so divisive.
I mean,
all of that, man.
Christ was the ultimate leader, right?
Absolutely.
You think about the humility that he showed as the leader, coming as man. I mean, he could have come in so many different ways and been born in a palace, but he was born in a manger in a barn.
Right.
The humility that he showed, and obviously the purpose of his ministry and the direction he gave, and the coaching and leadership that he provided to his disciples as he spread his gospel throughout the land, right, throughout the world. And so obviously looking at him as the ultimate leader in our mind, and how can we again build on those 5 pillars, those 5 principles, to work towards that, never arriving necessarily, but continuous pursuance of those things. So
it's a journey that and it's not meant to, hey, you're done with the program, I've arrived. That would be prideful to say.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
It's more like, no, all right, so now you're a better version of yourself now than when you started. And here's the next set of challenges. Here's a reset and a rethinking of what you're trying to do in becoming a better person, a better man of God, a better father, friend, brother, that type of thing. That's awesome. So you got Fight Club, PHARE Warrior. I see now how PHARE Warrior came about, so thank you for explaining that. French term means lighthouse. That's pretty awesome too. And so where are you at now? You're fully engaged in Fight Club, you're fully engaged in PHARE Warrior, you're also a teacher, right? You're a teacher. What grades do you tier? Where are you at with your with your profession?
Sure. Well, professionally, my career, my full-time career,
Yeah.
I was in the classroom for 10 years.
Yep.
And I taught everything from 4th grade to 8th grade math,
Okay.
6th grade, 7th grade,
Okay.
8th grade.
You like numbers?
I like numbers. I like routine. I like structure,
Yes.
things like that. So
Yep.
The arts is not necessarily my forte, although I have taught it. It's just not my forte.
Yeah. It's yeah. See, right there are other people better at art
That's
than
right.
Bob.
There are a lot of people who are better at reading and writing and all those things than I am. Give me some processes to find and patterns to look for.
Yeah, and he is
I think
excellent at that. Excellent at that, and does not like to be late. That is
No,
awesome.
I don't. The last 7 years I've spent as an instructional coach.
Okay.
So I get to coach and lead teachers. And so really
That's a blessing.
It's somewhat unique.
Yeah.
I think, our district is blessed to have one of my position at every building. And so it is really just an opportunity for me to coach and lead people in the education setting and in the world, which right now we know and across the country, I feel like is extremely challenging. But I also get to apply that and the things I've learned professionally to do that with leading and coaching men. So
Right.
the tie there is substantial and natural.
Yeah.
And my wife often reminds me that, if I was still in the classroom the way that it was, or the way that I was before, still in the classroom now, my ability to have some additional time to, whether it be mentally have the time or even time of my day before or after school to be able to help focus on and lead with PHARE Warrior through Fight Club, et cetera,
Right.
would really not be there. I couldn't have juggled both and couldn't do both and manage the time well if I was still in the classroom. So she obviously reminds me often that God put this role in my life to not only prepare me as a person and with the skill set to help, but also give me the bandwidth to be able to have the security, right, and for my family,
Right.
to be able to provide
Yep.
and not have a stress there,
Right.
but also then be able to really use my strengths
Yes.
to build, grow, and lead men in the community and have that impact. It's like my local mission, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of what I'm able to help grow here through his work and his grace here with men around me, like you continue to say, that are just really good at different things, but together, our common goal and common mission doesn't ever change.
Exactly. I love how the opportunity that you have to pour into other people, and then other people to also in turn turn around and pour into other people. And that's that discipleship that happens. And I hear that in what you're doing, and younger other teachers that you're able to coach are learning, and they're going to be able to do the same types of things if they so choose it. Be willing,
Right.
and God's aligned your path and your story to be able to make that happen for you, right? For
Yes.
you and your family. And so being open-minded to what he's got is a big key to having that opportunity and hearing that still small voice to say yes to,
Yes.
Versus, I'm just going to do this and this is all I'm going to do for the rest of my life. No, I think our culture shifted too to be a little more open-minded on the gig economy, right? But it's awesome. It's what I'm hearing is just great.
Thank you.
I'm stoked for you. Let's see. Well, there's a lot of other questions. And I knew this would happen because this happens every time. We have a list of questions. We do this every time. And we won't get to all of them. Let's see. Looking at the time, just taking a quick time check because I don't have my trusty Sally Waddington over here. She'll like that I mentioned her name as the producer, the producer of the show. But let's see. Anything you would like to say to people maybe thinking about signing up for Fight Club that's coming up in March? Anything you want to just encourage people with as they consider it or as they're thinking about it?
Yeah, I would, you know me, Brett, I'm not really one to pull too many punches.
Yeah,
I tend to, and that's one thing that I've had to learn, you know, and how to hold people accountable, and that it's okay to hold people accountable.
Oh yeah.
But as you know, speaking to the men out there, as men, we are accountable to lead.
Yeah.
We are accountable to lead in every facet of our lives, I believe. And I 100% agree and believe that every single man out there, every person is a leader. You're either a good leader or a bad leader, but you're leading somehow.
Right.
You're leading by your words, you're leading by your actions, because somebody's watching what you're doing and how you're doing it, what you're saying and how you're saying it, in every place that you go, in every conversation you might have. And so for me, what Fight Club has done for me is given me a basis and a platform to be able to continuously learn, grow, and reflect on myself, so that I can make sure no matter where I am, whether that be at school, whether God puts me in a different career path later somewhere else, whether that be in a church, whether that be just in a conversation at Lowe's in the hardware store,
Right.
but being his hands and feet and being that example.
Yeah.
And it takes time to grow and learn as a leader. It's not something that we said before. I don't think you're born with it. I think you grow and develop into that. And Fight Club itself is a program that, if trusted and done with fidelity,
Right.
and given the attention that it needs, can develop, I believe personally, any man into that, and
I believe
continuously
that.
grow and help with that.
Yeah,
Now,
I believe with that.
you know,
statement.
but I would also say, you know, Fight Club, I think every man will benefit from going through that program. Is it for everybody? Probably not, but I think everybody could benefit from it.
Sure.
But I think you have to approach it with the right mindset as well.
Yeah.
You know, registration opens in February 18th, fc414.club/register.
Say that again.
FC for Fight Club, FC414, it's based on Nehemiah 4:14.
Yep.
So fc414.club/register.
Got it.
Opens up February 18th. The
Yep.
round begins March 18th. If you're local here in the central Indiana area, or even really anywhere close to central Indiana, kickoff is at Finch Creek Fieldhouse in Noblesville,
Okay.
which is just outside of Indianapolis. If you are remote or further outside of the Indiana region, depending on where you're located, we've got Brunswick, Georgia, we've got Marshfield, Wisconsin. As to if you're southern Indiana, we've got Bedford, Indiana. They host, typically all three of those locations will host their own kickoff and events, but we will be able to connect you virtually as well. So make sure
Sweet.
that you're looking into that. And it's been life-changing for myself. I know it's been super impactful for you, Brent, and along with literally thousands of other men across the world.
Absolutely.
To be plugged into.
Absolutely. Is it free for first-time guys?
It is. That is actually something we've been able to really hold tight to, is that we want to take down any barrier and roadblock that we can, especially for a first-time guy, right, to come in who really doesn't know what they're getting into until they show up. That's all. Because most guys will say, I have no idea, didn't know what I was getting myself into before I came. But it is, first-time guys are all sponsored by somebody.
Yep.
You know, whether that be a graduate is able to sponsor a first-time guy.
Yep.
We've had churches sponsor groups, so we'll have a church say, hey, I want to sponsor 10 guys for my church, and that is definitely something that guys are able to do. If you're a business owner out there and you obviously you have allocated funds to donate and give, there are things you need to give your money to, give money away and support and help, and we believe this is a good cause for that. We believe in growing men and growing leaders. And so for you as a business, as a company, we have sponsor opportunities for you to get your name out there. But we also just have an opportunity for you to support the men in your organization.
Yeah.
Hey,
who doesn't want great leaders inside the organization? Right?
And we do it. We grow men, again, mentally, spiritually, relationally, and physically.
Yep.
And we believe if you can grow in those 4 areas, you're going to be a stronger man, stronger person, and stronger leader, for wherever it is that you are. We talked a lot about that. So Just would encourage all you guys, take a look at that, make note of that. Again, fc414.club is the website you can go to for that information, and reach out to Brent or myself.
Absolutely. Well, with that, man, I want to thank you for coming on, bro.
Appreciate you having me. This has been fun.
Yeah, this has been great, and I'll have you back again. here maybe by the end of the year or next year this time.
Sure.
Kind of recap Fight Club, how it's going, PHARE Warrior, how that's going, what you're up to, just touch base about how life's going and stuff like that. So with that, we'll wrap it up. Thank you again. I appreciate you being on the show, Foster and Friends.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks, Bob.